Maybe, or now it started. Okay, now we're starting.
There
We're
we
live.
go.
We're live. Okay, welcome to the Conservative Echo Chamber. I don't know what episode this is. This is an episode, though, and we're starting now. Hi, and welcome to the Conservative Echo Chamber. My name is Jonathan. I'm here with my co-host, Josh. We don't podcast regularly. We just do it whenever we feel like, because that's how we roll. We're just...
Because we have jobs and responsibilities.
Exactly.
That's why.
If I could podcast all day, I would. I'm not going to lie. I'm one of those people, like, I will just... I'm not going to say that I will gladly listen to the sound of my own voice, but I will gladly listen to the sound of my own voice. It's a little bit shameful.
That's why we're
Like-
co-hosts. We can gladly listen to the sound of each other's
Like, I
voices.
will listen to YouTube videos of us, not regularly, just like every once in a couple of months. I'll be like, yeah, I made a really good point back then.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we're going to do this again because, oh my gosh, Josh, what is it with? Okay, look, I know it's not a genetic thing. I know it's not. Our video is titled "Racial DNA Profiling." Because look, if you're sitting there and you're like have any shred of logic, you understand certain things about how race works and how, like, okay, so what might happen if someone is not intelligent but thinks that they're intelligent and then learns how gene sequencing works?
Or just Punnett squares. Could we please get Punnett squares right? It's funny because I still remember learning about it in high school, and my teacher specifically said, "This is not how Punnett squares work," and then proceeded to give the example that this person gave.
The worst. Okay, so we need to. I'm going to switch this over to my view. So you're going to see what I see, because you need to see this video, and it is so horrible. It's one of those videos where it's like painful and delicious, but painful at the same time. So I'm going to switch this over to
delicious.
You think? Okay, we ready?
Yet it will still nourish us.
All right, we're gonna do this. Screen sharing. All right. Now, Josh, tell me if you can hear this.
Well,
Can you hear that?
I can't, but I've already seen it.
Oh dear Lord! All right, hold on.
Why'd you have to pause on that face?
Because it's just how we roll. It's how we roll. All right. How about this?
Also, this person is not allowed to wear a Hendrix shirt. Not allowed. Hendrix was awesome. She's not worthy of it.
So what we're
Racist
gonna do
and-
is I'm gonna do another cheaty thing where I'm gonna play it in through my audio, and then you're just gonna sit and watch this lovely photo here.
All
This
right,
picture over here.
we do
Because
it.
that's how.
Trust,
roll.
it's okay. We can show him a screenshot of the Punnett square if necessary.
We'll just. That's what she looks like.
Prepare yourselves, gents.
Hey everyone, I basically want to come and do another short video
There we go.
showing you all exactly what I display to my class, the Punnett square. Before I get into that, it needs to be first understood
square.
that the oldest individual to ever be found on the face of the earth was a woman given the name of Lucy, who was African. She was found in South Africa. This literally ended all arguments that anyone on the face of the earth did not come from African people.
Okay, first off, it wasn't really like Africa. It's more like the Middle East, which is technically like Northern Africa and actually part of very southern, southwestern Asia, I believe it was.
Yeah, I know that we're not sure, but we know human civilization started around the Fertile Crescent area, and so my thought has always been that humans generally came from there as well. It makes sense, because outside of the Fertile Crescent, there's a whole lot of
Means
awful...
that African people are the father and
sorry.
the mother of the
Continue with what you're saying.
Well, think about it. If you have a whole lot of awful in all directions, you tend to want to stay in the spot you know is nice before you move on.
Well, what I was gonna say is is like I don't recall. Maybe there was. I don't ever remember there being like a huge discussion about where the original Adam and Eve came from. I think everyone understood. Yeah, it probably came from Africa. Probably. I mean, this girl looks like she's at least past high school age.
It's a little strange because I thought that they were thinking more like Ethiopia area than South Africa. South Africa, you have a lot of explaining to do if you want to say that South Africa is the birthplace of all human beings.
All right, we ready to continue?
All right.
Let's continue through the pain. We got this.
The entire universe. Now, the Punnett
The entire
square.
universe, Josh, not just the world.
This is what we use in science to
The world
display
is not enough.
genes and genotype.
All right, that's what she's showing that I have pulled up on the screen right now. That's the Punnett square. And, of course, on the right, you see the 5 groups, black, yellow, brown, white, and something else.
And red.
This right here is 5 groups of people, the 5 groups of people of color. You have the black, who is the African, the brown, who is considered the Middle Eastern, the red, who is considered the Native American or the Latin. You have the yellow, who's considered the Asian, and the white, who's considered the European, just to keep it simple. Now, these two...
Oh, yeah,
I'm
simplicity.
so glad
That's why you did that.
Now, ignoring the fact... Okay, so aside from this Punnett square not being the correct way of approaching genetics in the first place, the other major flaw that goes on with this is there's actually hundreds of genes which contribute to the color of a person's skin. It's not one specific. There's not like 2 little genomes that sit there and they alone control what color your skin is. It's actually like a huge set of genomes. Any which one of them can be modified in any sort of number of ways to influence your skin color in any sort of direction, which is why you not only have people who are brown skin, who are people black, yellow, but like individual skin tones within those things. That's why you can see dozens, if not 100 different origins based on a person's skin color.
Ladies, that's why you can never find makeup that exactly matches your complexion when you go to the store.
Yes, that's
The
why
story
there's no
isn't
such thing as
racist.
the perfect tan.
It's genetics are racist.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right, continuing on.
2 big X's display the African, because we are genetically dominant. Anyone that doesn't understand that black people are genetically dominant is a person that has first been miseducated on themselves.
I don't know how coming first equals dominant.
Does she not realize that the way she's even set it up with 2 X's being black, African, 2 lowercase x's being white, there's no possible way for this to represent the 5 races accurately?
Right.
It's actually impossible.
Right, and this is such a wrong way. Well, this is one
Even
possible.
for simplification.
All right, we're gonna continue.
We've been taught to think that we're inferior, but the science behind it is all black people are genetically dominant. Now,
What does genetically dominant mean? Continuing.
the 2 small x's are white people, recessive. White people are a recessive gene. That means that when they have children with a black man or a black woman, all of the children will have the recessive allele masked by the dominant allele.
See, here's the problem: is okay.
Because mulattoes don't exist.
I know exactly. It's like if a very black man has sex with a very white woman, or vice versa, with a very white man, very pale, and a very dark-skinned woman, the baby is not going to be just black. It's going to be in between. It's like if you mix white and black together, you get a shade of gray, or in this case, a shade of lighter brown. To pretend that that's the same thing as super dark brown is maybe this girl's colorblind, Josh. Maybe that's the problem.
So, wait a minute. So, when a white person and a black person get together and make a baby, their baby is Middle Eastern?
I guess so,
Based
Josh.
on, because brown is Middle Eastern according to this chart. And so, the children
Josh, you're probably just
of black
thinking
ones are
things
Middle
wrong
Eastern.
because you're racist. That's probably what's going on.
Oh, curse you, racist genes.
All right, continue.
By the dominant allele. So when you look at Thandie Newton from Norbit, she has a British father and a Nigerian mother, but she still displays blackness because blackness is dominant.
She displays that
Look at
blackness.
Barack Obama, who has a Kenyan father and a white mother. He will still be black because black is
he's half
the
black.
master of his
He's
white.
half white.
It's literally dominant. The same thing goes for Tiger Woods. So literally, anytime a black
I wouldn't say that Obama is black so much as he's like half black and half pussy.
Has a child with the brown, the child is now black. Black has a child with the red, the child is black. Yellow, white, the exact same thing. This is where racism
With a
comes
red.
in.
Wow.
White people
Wait. She just spent the whole time explaining how. No. Notice she spent the whole time explaining how black is dominant, black is dominant, black is dominant. Now this is where racism comes in.
are literally 16 to 18% of the entire
With
world
a red.
population, making them the minority.
What's that, Josh?
She said, black with a red. Not a red person, black person, white person. It's with a red.
No, a person of red skin is the correct way to say it, Josh. Don't be racist.
That's not how she said it. Oh, wait, no. Racist genes acting up again. We better continue.
All right.
The thing about whiteness is it's a recessive gene. So you literally have to have
We're so
two
proud of
white
your new
parents,
vocabulary
two white
word.
parents in order to be white. So when Dylan Roof says you're raping our women, what does he mean by that? He means that anytime
He
a
means
white
it's
woman
stupid.
has a child with a black man, those children are not white anymore, because in order to clarify as white, you have to be 100%
To clarify.
white.
Stop raping my jeans, man. Stop.
To the people that are already the minority, it is extremely
Now, if you have recessive genes, does that mean that your genes are unable to consent? Just wanted to check.
Uh-oh. Oh.
important to hold on to the genetics that they already have, because their genetics are already recessive. So think about prison. Why are so many black men are in prison? Because if you're in prison, what are you not doing? You are not having children. Why does it
But you are having lots of involuntary sex.
Not to mention the fact, really? It's because it's recessive, that's the problem? Okay, she's about to make her case. Let me put this in. Instead of thinking black and white, think right-handed and left-handed. It will make this hilarious.
Okay.
seems so many black American men are turning homosexual? So many black women are lesbians. Because if you are lesbian,
I didn't know that was a problem amongst the black population.
Them's catching the gays!
homosexual, you are not what? You are not procreating your race. The basis of racism is white people understanding that if we do not kill black people at all times, that they will eventually kill us. So when you look at black men,
If this is true, then you think that black women would instinctually understand, I need to not go to, like, not to be a dick, but like in percentages, the people going to abortion clinics and killing their own children,
being
black
pulled over
women
by
are.
oftentimes European police officers shot and killed for no
John. Stop interrupting John. He was talking.
I was talking, lady. Okay. The number of people, in terms of demographics, black people outweigh vastly any other demographic in terms of people who go to the abortion clinics and have their unborn children killed. So, on the assumption that people instinctually feel this, you would think that this would mean either one of two things. Either one, your line of reasoning is bullshit, or two, or three, or there's three options. Or two, black people are just completely immune to this unseen feeling of instinctual knowledge that you have to do this, which means that they're genetically inferior. Or three, they're just suicidal as a race.
By the way...
Which one is it, girl? Which one? Which one? Which one is it, girl?
Replace some of the words around. Left-handed people know that they are recessive. Therefore,
reason
they
is
know
because
that
they
if right-handed people
subconsciously
don't kill each other at all
understand
times.
that if I do not kill him,
Hold on. All right, continue.
Now, left-handed people know that if right-handed people aren't killing themselves at all times, then their genes will take over and there won't be any left-handed people.
Knew it. All right, we're going to try to get back to the video here because it all got screwed up.
well, so many black women are lesbians. Because if you are lesbian homosexual,
Lesbian
you
black
are not
women
what? You are not
homosexuals.
procreating your race. The basis of racism is white people understanding that if we do not kill black people at all times, that they will eventually kill us. So when you look at black men being pulled over by oftentimes European police officers, shot and killed for no reason, is because they subconsciously understand that if I do not kill him, that he's going to kill my children with his genetics.
How?
So we've gone from gene rape to gene killing, even though the minor gene would still be okay.
He's going to kill my kids with his genetics. If I don't kill this black man right now, He's going to sleep with my wife, and then my
Racism
genetics
is
will be
not
passed
simply
on.
somebody-
Is that what she's saying?
Deadliest sperm ever.
hating you because you got this fly car, because they don't want to see you do well. White people do not want to go extinct. So in order for them not to go to extinct, they created a system called racism, white supremacy, in order to kill black people.
Okay, the way you know this is bullshit is because, one, the number of black people who are killed by white people is like in the maybe thousands a year in the United States. Like it's literally like 200 black individuals who are killed by police officers, for an example. Whereas the number of black kids killed by other black kids is like 7,000 or 8,000. We know right now that the African American population in the U.S. would be 30% higher today than it was in the 1960s were it not for Planned Parenthood and the readily availability of abortion services. I mean, of all the people committing genocide, it is not white people. It is literally black mothers upon their children. You are stopping yourselves from winning. You are snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, ladies. So, open those legs, but not near an abortion clinic. Continuing.
Black people, because we show the strongest genetic variability. So when you go to Africa, you're going to see a lot of different diseases that target black people, because we have got to diminish your numbers if we have a chance of living and surviving.
Stop it. Hold everything. Did she
Josh.
make the assertion that black people in Africa, because the white people or brown people in Africa don't matter suddenly?
This is the reality of racism. So we've been taught to hate our skin. We've been taught to hate our lips. We've been taught to hate our wide noses.
The wide and flat noses.
These diseases that have been killing people for hundreds, if not thousands of years, were invented by primitive Europeans for the expressed purpose of killing black people.
I got 30 seconds left.
Same diseases, I might add, that decimated European populations. It was a good plan.
All right, 30 seconds left. We think we can make this?
I don't know. She just blamed the fact that people die from disease on racism.
We got a bigger point than that, but we'll finish this up.
We've been taught to hate everything about blackness because really we're dominantly strong. Think about Venus and Serena Williams dominating in tennis. Think about Tiger Woods dominating in golf. Think about all of the amazing, basketball players that have played in the NBA, amazing NFL players. The majority of those individuals, if not always, are people of African descent, are black people. That's not coincidental because we are genetically strong. We are genetically stronger than any individual on the entire face of the earth.
Okay, just to point out, if the fact that the most of the NBA is black people and that makes them genetically strong, does the fact that most computer programs are white people mean that they're stupid? I'm just saying, that's her argument. Continuing.
The European knows that. So if he wants to live for the next 200 years and have blue-eyed, blonde-haired children, then that means, unfortunately, he has to kill us. Understand, overstand, wake up, love being black. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Don't kill us.
That was some confusing racism.
I would like to point out, we're gonna get rid of this picture. We're gonna stop screen sharing because it's no longer necessary. I would just like to point out. I would just like to point out. Yes, my beautiful face is returned.
Okay.
I want to point out the fact that. Oh, by the way, for anyone watching, we do have a Q&A section. Why is it disabled? Why is it disabled? Why is the feature disabled? Should not be disabled. I didn't turn it off.
Because YouTube Senpai noticed us. That's why.
It saw us and it was like, screw these guys.
Oh. Down with your inferior genes. That's what he was thinking.
I don't know why it does that. Okay. Anyways, here's the thing. If black people had superior genes, they would not have black specific diseases. That wouldn't be a thing. It would be, those diseases would be hitting the inferior populations, and destroying them, while the superior populations would be relatively immune to them. In fact, one of the reasons why Europeans decimated Indians in America was the fact that because Europeans had already been ravaged by the Black Plague and hundreds of other diseases and actually lost significant amounts of population, like the Black Plague killed, what was it, like 20% in a decade, and then another 20%, and then another 20%?
I think it ended up being about 2/3 total, but I could be mistaken.
Huge populations, but the benefit was, in spite of all those deaths, was that there were huge throngs of people now who were much more hardy in their immune system. And then they went over to the New World and met with the Indians, who did not have, because they had been isolated from all this disease, were not able to cope with what was now a cough for us, a small cold for us, was now life-threatening flu for them. And so the irony is that in our war against the Indians, only 5% of the deaths were actually attributable to us using guns and weapons. 95% of the deaths on the Indian side was actually them being unable to cope with their immune systems were too weak to cope with what for us was a cough and to them was a major disease. They literally got wiped out by diseases that we had basically conquered, even in our pre-germ theory knowledge of medicine at that time.
Heck, even our colonial sanitation gave us an edge that the oh-so-wonderful people who hadn't invented the wheel couldn't match.
Yes, the Indians had not invented the wheel, man. They had not invented the freaking wheel. And horses, we brought that shit over. They didn't, the whole thing with the Native American chief on a war horse and all that stuff, no. That wasn't the original one. The original one was them running around because they didn't have horses because Europeans brought those over on ships. Your whole knowledge of history is just wrong. But here's the other thing: this is what happens when you have a very rudimentary, non-existent knowledge of genetics. Is you get stupid arguments like this. For example, if I was an idiot who had just gone through high school or whatever class that she went into, I would say, oh yeah, I just learned about germ theory. It totally proves how white people are superior, because what happens is you have one set of bacteria, and then what happens is eventually, you have new mutations that show up. Now, black, that was the original skin color, right? But then new DNA emerged, and that was what became the white people and the red people and all that stuff. So the old bacteria are always superseded by the new bacteria in any sort of new environment. Therefore, white people are superior because we are the newer genetic mutations of a thing, and black people are less superior. They're more inferior because they're the ones whom all the diseases still hit, and we're superior because we're immune to all of them.
You know the funny thing? There were some people who took that line of thinking seriously. Thomas Sowell outlines them in Intellectuals and Race. And it's funny, these people would just say these things, and people would buy. It's like, oh, well, obviously whites are superior. Look how advanced we are.
No, all we had was a superior culture. That's all we had. It's a set of ideas. Because the thing is you watch, you were telling me about this. You had black northerners who were totally fine, who were actually repulsed by southern African Americans.
Yeah.
Who were not refined.
No. It's funny. Thomas Sowell makes the case, and he says it's not definitive, but I'm sold. I'm convinced that Southern black culture, which would eventually become known as black culture in the United States, had another name back in the day. It was called cracker culture. Cracker, of course, refers to people from a part of northern England, Scotland. There's sort of a disputed territory where the kings would basically continually fight each other, so there's no political stability. So as a result, these people had no forward-thinking, planning skills. They were very aggressive, very sensitive egos, very prideful. And these people just happened to be the people who settled the southern United States. And so wherever they would go, sexual promiscuity would increase, to pregnancy out of wedlock, like one person was going through, saying that pretty much every wedding he attended, every wedding he worked in, the bride was already pregnant. And this cracker culture, this pride, this willing to resort to, deadly force for a slight, like he just looked at me wrong. This was one of the characteristics of this cracker, or what Sol refers to as white redneck culture. Blacks who moved to southern United States picked this up. Northern blacks, folks who were up by the Amish, for example, not only did they assimilate, but there's a reason why some of the northern states were banning slavery as early as 1802. Because they're my freaking neighbors, man.
We don't want George to be a slave.
Pies.
We like him. He makes really
they're so
he
delicious.
makes really good shepherd's pie. Why would we enslave him?
Heck, most of them are performing as well as the rest of us. They're productive members. And so it came to the point where when blacks started to move out of the South, because as unpopular as this notion is, it's the truth. Sol documents that the lynching of blacks during slavery was actually fairly rare. Economic incentives made it so that way Southerners were very defensive of their slaves. No one was allowed to touch their slaves because, frankly, they were so unproductive as it was because of their toxic cracker culture.
Right, well, that and the fact that when you starve someone and whip them at the same time, it makes it difficult for them to do the work that they need to do. It might just a little bit, just
imagine that kind of
a little bit might impede, your productivity.
So after slavery was outlawed, and white people were like, crap, we don't have slaves anymore. What are they good for? And so they tried to do honor killings, who's basically the southern white equivalent of honor killings. And so blacks start moving up north, and northern blacks, like, please don't let them move anywhere near us. Please. We're begging you. Because wherever Southerners, black or white, would move into a community, crime would go up, alcoholism would go up, productivity would plummet. The order of society, the ability to speak English rather than whatever crazy dialect that they got from Northern England, that territory, for example, axe for ask, dis for this, dat for that. This cracker culture that came up, it was so disruptive and so destructive that black and white alike, like, please keep it away. And so it's hard for us to imagine that this was the culture, because after this cracker culture left Scotland, they had the intellectual, revolution where the Scots were like, okay, guys, we need to stop sucking at life just for a moment. So let's read and become better than the English. And they did for a while. That didn't really happen in the United States, not for a while, not until like the 20th century, like late 20th century, where Southerners actually became a productive part of society. Trouble is, blacks never abandoned that cracker culture.
Right, which is why you now have rap battles, which is why you now have... It switched from, quote-unquote cracker culture, which is actually a derivative of rural English and I believe it was Scottish. It wasn't the Scots that had the original rap battles. Like, that was it. That was them. Like, they had, like, bards who would, go and exchange insults.
That's a real thing. What they would do is the highly cadential orations is actually a Northern England, Scottish thing, where they get together, the stereotypical Southern preacher, and I am here to tell you tonight that the Lord God, that's actually from that region of South. Now, England and Scotland changed after
I just want you to
moved
know that's
out.
some very horrible cultural appropriation that's going on by the black culture of Scottish culture.
That's part of the...
There's such...
part of the
Look,
irony.
man, if you are black and you watch this, just understand you are not allowed to complain about cultural appropriation, because like 90% of gang culture and 90% of thug culture or black culture or whatever you want to is cultural appropriation of rural English and Northern Scottish. Like that's all them. You're literally ripping off white people and then yelling at other white people for enjoying your version of what other white people did hundreds of years before you did.
The
Just
highly
FYI.
sexualized, the highly, primal, he just looked at me wrong and so kill him. That is all part of this white redneck culture. Like, literally, like, down the line. The only difference is you have a modern, a healthy dose of modern progressivism.
I'm pretty sure like
mixed
the giant
into it.
gold chains and the oversized jerseys, that might be original to black culture, but the rest of it,
Not really, actually.
don't ruin
it
this
was-
for me, man.
No, it was described that blacks in the South, and to an extent it can be tied to cracker culture, they loved opulent living more than they loved having a bank account. That was the observation back in the day, shortly after slavery. It's like, they love spending a lot of money. They love showing how well off they are, but a lot of the original, like, Southern culture... let me go on a quick segue and I'll come back.
Okay.
You know how a lot of Southern recipes use butter? Like
Yes.
an unhealthy amount of butter?
Eggs, butter, flour, sugar.
Would it be shocking to learn that even though the South had way more cows, butter was actually very scarce? People had heard of butter, but had never actually tasted it?
Okay.
Well, you see, up north, when they wanted to have cows, every winter they would put them into a barn and feed them hay throughout the winter until it was warm enough for them to go outside. Crackers didn't do that. Crackers thought, we'll find their way back if they get cold. And so they just let them wander around in the wilderness and then come back in the spring.
Well, that's one way to lose all your cows, I guess.
Well, they would be so starved by the time they got back, it would take half the summer just to get them back to their normal weight. And then when they would have kids, most of their milk would be used up just feeding their new calf. There wouldn't be enough left over afterwards for anything else. And so, cracker cows produce almost nothing. The only people in the South who managed to get reliable results out of them were Germans who didn't adopt the cracker culture.
Okay, so then you need to explain how the whole like cornbread and buttermilk pancakes and all that stuff came from the South then.
Well, that's not covered, but I have
Is
a few
that more of like a
theories.
Pennsylvania Dutch thing?
I think it is. Because
Wow.
what happened was New England went on missions trips, yes, really, settled down south and said, we're going to teach you how to learn because you suck at it. Literally. And so originally, butter was a sign of high class. Like, I have a whole stick of butter in this dish.
How would you imagine that kind of rap battle? I have butter, you have none.
My ladies say swimming in butter.
I'll just bend over and you can butter my bun.
And so then the Pennsylvania Dutch, they come down like, we're going to teach you how not to be failures. That sound good? And so suddenly, for the first time, Southerners had the culture and the sense. Pretty much every educational institution in the South was run by Northerners. Every newspaper, it was all Northerners. And so Northerners, including from Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, all that, brought the means for them to produce for themselves down south. And so suddenly, this curious habit of, oh, look how awesome butter is, now you have the means to use your cows that you already have to make your own butter. They binged on the stuff. And
So what
that's-
you're talking about is the whole thing with buttermilk and buttermilk pancakes and all that stuff is really a century long butter binge after like 2 centuries of not having any. So sometime in the like next 20 years, this cornbread will just fade. Like they'll get old with it. It'll just get old and it'll just fade from the South because finally, like 5 generations later, they'll be like,
all
finally,
right,
we're done.
we good.
We finally have too much of this stuff. I'm sick of butter. Let's get something different. I know. We'll just, soda bread. We'll just make everything with soda. Soda bread.
Excellent. Actually, it is funny to me thinking about the implications. Again, a lot of this wasn't actually directly covered in Thomas Sowell's book. This is some of my other additional readings or things I've pieced together. But if you think about it, it's funny. Much of the polite Southern culture that we know today is a result of the North.
Really? So then, where do New Yorkers get off being assholes?
Progressives.
Okay, just checking.
No, that's pretty much it. Progressives. When you get right down to it, Southern hospitality, Southern manners. For a while, there was some of that, just because if you say the wrong thing, you get killed and have your testicles ripped off for the pleasure of the audience, that the crowd that forms around the fight. But
right, well, that's definitely a good reason not to flip off Jerry at work. So yeah, okay.
people say, oh, the South is more about property rights. Yes and no. They're all for don't touch my stuff. But that's about as far as it went. There's no greater concept. All the thinking on property rights is really more of a northern thing. All of the manners, all of the, speaking well, treating women well, that was a northern import. That was not a southern value. Literally, southerners would go, I'm referring to southern crackers now. Southern crackers would go to church. Now, most of them didn't go because they were too hungover from binge drinking the night before. But those who would, young people would go to church in order to find people to hook up with after church. That's a true story. That is an actual account that one of the ministers was complaining. It's like they only come to church because they want to hook up.
Wow. And I thought our generation was getting bad.
No. The South was not a nice place. So, in a lot of ways, Southern pride is a combination of a holdover from cracker pride mixed with a healthy dose of Northern values.
Wow. Well, there's a lot of people on Twitter I'd like to share this with.
That the North eventually gave up in favor of progressivism. Seriously, history is not nice to anyone.
I know. Well, see, here's the sad part is because of this whole thing with Black Lives Matter and Black Pride, is now starting to stir up people who are reacting to that and becoming, all white pride, and now they're adopting the whole Southern pride bit. It's just a shame that they don't understand like the contextual history of what's actually going on and where that source is from and how bad it is. Because the thing is as soon as you get people to invest in a certain cultural or ethnic group where that group alone is superior based on superficial reasons, right? So like you and I, we say Western culture is better, but what we actually mean is the philosophy upon which Western culture is based is superior to other forms of philosophy, right? That's essentially what we're saying. Whereas black culture, which tends to be a whole lot of white people are racist, white people are suck, they're evil. Even though I can't point at there's systemic racism, even though I don't even know any of the actual reasons why it would be systemic. It's invisible. It's invisible systemic racism, but it's hurting you in many ways that you can't actually detect.
Fun anecdote about that in a minute.
But like this sort of like that kind of shallowness is the same reason why Germany turned into what it became, is because you had this race baiting, but instead of it being between black and whites, it was between between the Germanic people and people to the
for example
east.
In Czechoslovakia, basically Germans were hated everywhere they went because they were a lot better. It was kind of like Jews. They were just so much more successful than everyone else when they moved somewhere. And so the Czechs, after the intellectuals started getting more political, movement going, they're like, all right, we better discriminate against the Germans so that way native Czechs have a fair shot at it, because the Germans have clearly discriminated. Germans didn't have any means to discriminate. And suddenly they're told that they're the villains. And so the cosmopolitan Germans who are just like, oh yeah, everyone's kind of nice. If after being repeatedly told Germans suck, Germans are the villains, Germans are the villains, Germans are the reason for... Eventually they said, no, Germans don't suck. Germans are actually nice. And you guys are bullies. And so people blame the rise of the Nazis on nationalism. That's a half-truth. German nationalism did not exist until the German reactionary movement against, for example, Czech discrimination towards them.
Right.
When
now,
they made race the battle.
let's not go to the extension of saying that the white pride people on Twitter today are Nazis, but let's just say that when I see them, I feel a level. I would be okay with it, but for the warning in my heart.
They're willing to seek your heil should the need arise.
Yes. Well, look. What we'll do is Josh, you and I will refuse to tan. We'll stay out of the sunlight for the next like year or two. Then whenever the movement really gets going, you and I will show up and we'll be like, we're like brothers, brothers, follow us, and we will take you to new heights.
We have shaved our heads for the occasion.
That's right. I'm naturally doing it. I'm just sucking all my hair back in through my scalp. And what we'll do is once we'll be like the comical version of evil Hitler, where just like as opposed to good Hitler. Anyways, we'll be the comical version of Hitler, where like we'll like get everyone to follow us, and then try to be really evil, but then everything will just go comically wrong. And then we'll just end with a giant kumbaya moment. Everyone will be like, "All right, fine, you're equal to me, and I'm equal to you, and no one's doing this bullshit racist crap. There's no systemic racism against people. It's just do the best you can with what you got." Because the thing is look, let's be honest here for just a moment. If the Black Pride movement and the feminist movement, if we view them separately, if they're both getting to the point where feminists are going on about microaggressions, and where black students are going, oh yeah, it wasn't that he said anything racist, it was the tone in which he said it. At that point, you have to sit down and realize, like, look, if there are people who the only form of racism where you're getting is people have the wrong tone, then it's probably you. You're probably just seeing shit in your mind.
It's the fragile cracker ego.
Right, and at that point, it's like, look, even, like, this is what I would say. If I was a black father, this is what I would say to my son. You may see racism in individual situations. It's true that there are still racists that exist. However, we live in a world where it is possible to succeed despite the racists, and therefore it is your job to go and have an iron will and set out to succeed at any cost, keeping within your own standards, to succeed at any cost. Understand that you may face oppression, you may face racism and other things, but that you are not to let it get you down, and you are to push on and succeed despite it. This whole thing where you give people this out and say, oh yeah, you're totally oppressed, there's nothing you can do. You just have to sit there and find a safe space and go shit your pants and cry to mommy. Like, no, fuck that. Why? Why would you do that? Why act like a 20-year-old toddler? That's what you're doing. Anyways.
It's funny. It's amazing how much more I pick up from books when I listen to them. I love Audible. I really do. I had already read Black Rednecks and White Liberals, but listening to it again on Audible, it's amazing how much I missed. I picked up a little moment when Soul makes the observation of the sudden appearance of plus power in the definition of racism in the 1960s.
Oh my God.
In order to explain, he said, number one, the only reason you made that addition is because you needed a quick and convenient excuse to explain the dramatic rise in black racism. If there were not a dramatic rise in black racism, you would not have needed the qualifier. Number two, really, plus power. So then the KKK is not racist. The KKK is one of the most hated and most ostracized groups in the American public. They have zero influence left. So you are saying the KKK, as it exists today, is by definition not racist.
Oh, geez, man. Let's not go there. Let's just, I don't even know, man. Oh, man.
If it is prejudice plus power, the KKK is not racist.
Right. That's very true. Oh, I mean, because, look, I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah, he went there. He went.
I mean, that is a very valid point. I mean, and here's the other problem. It's they'll say, like, oh, according to country, they're powerful in this country, they're powerful not in this country, blah, blah, blah. Well, as soon as you acknowledge that, you acknowledge that this whole thing of power is not a universal concept, it's fractal, right? It applies at different levels. At that point, you have to understand that, and then you have to get to the point where you admit that, okay, in that case, then even in the U.S., there are specific instances where black people can have power. So even if you accept the whole power, power plus prejudice thing, it still doesn't excuse you. Because if, for example, if you have a group of black young males who surround a white young male, all right, they have the power of life and death over them. Therefore, by your own definition, like if they beat the shit out of him until they died, and they did because he was white, they were fucking racist. They had the power to end his life, and they chose to end his life. They exercised that power, and therefore, according to the definition of racism, they were racist. It's the same thing if you have a black professor who has students and says, oh, the white people, I'm going to discriminate against them because they're white. He has the power of affecting their education, the quality of their education, and also the outcome of their education. So by the definition of prejudice plus power, he is being racist if he chooses to lower people's grades or grade them poorly or more harshly based merely on the color of their skin. So this whole notion that you can just say, oh, power plus privilege, therefore I'm only being prejudiced, not racist. Like, no, look, dude, prejudice is still prejudiced. You are still being prejudiced, and it is bad to be prejudiced. Don't say that just because you don't have power. You're bullshitting yourself if you say that. You are totally BSing yourself. And now for the weather, Josh.
It is funny how we are allowed to say, going back to this very, very stupid video, that because of Punnett squares, we are superior genetically.
Right.
And that is why the only explanation for our failure is that there must be a giant history-long, worldwide conspiracy against our superiorness. Evidently, your superiority didn't help you see that one coming. I mean, how many centuries the Head Start did you have? We know the Head Start Asia had. Not too many people know the Head Start Africa had.
Yeah, no, both China and saying Asia, both China and all of India, two separate cultures, and then on top of that, Russia, which just sat there and no one touched. Well, no one was able to invade them. They were just, I think Russia was just so satisfied by like people failing over and over again to conquer them. They were just like, we don't even have to try anymore.
We're gonna move south because it's cold, but honestly, the view.
But we got a chunk of Purple Mountain's majesty right here. Well, you get what I'm saying. Like, yeah, exactly what you're saying is that people had, China had so many years to pull way ahead, and it's like they did gunpowder and they did calligraphy and they did some mathematics and some chemistry, and then that was it. And then from the year like 1900 or 1800 and onward, it's like Americans were like, stand back, China, I'll take it from here. Watch while we invite and bring in like, and of course America and Europe brought in multiple different sections of technology, starting with the industrial age, moving on to the technological age. I mean, what has China contributed in terms of the information age? Aside from just ripping off everybody.
Pollution.
Pollution. Yeah. Yeah. Like a couple of years ago, they were building 5 coal plants a day on average. Like, pollution, just so much.
And again, going back to the point, we often forget that, again, Africa's a continent, so it's hard to make generalizations about it. Not everyone on the African continent was black. Egyptians were not black. I know people like to say they were, they weren't. And Egyptians were pretty good. I mean, Nubians, too, as I understand it, had a fairly advanced civilization. What do? They fought wars over who could build the most awesome tomb.
Hey, man, they did build some really awesome tombs, though.
But then you think, what about the major African kingdoms, like the Kingdom of Mali? Now, Mali, they had so much gold there that I can't be certain of this. I think if all of their gold were suddenly to enter the European market, it might devalue gold to the point, make it worthless for a while, if it had all gone to Europe all at once. These were obscenely rich people. Even Mark Twain, while going around, he would talk about it's amazing how powerful some of these folks in Northern Africa are. And Mark Twain made a comment. I don't think he thought much of it, but he said that in this particular place where he was, I think it was Morocco, but I could be wrong, there are no rich people, because anyone who has anything has long ago buried it, so that way it wouldn't be taken by the authorities.
It's an interesting way of putting it.
And from what I can tell, it was true, because if you had it, they could take everything if they decided they needed it. They didn't have a tax system. It was, we need it, and so guys with swords would go take it.
Well, that's disappointing.
Yeah. And so Africa had literally thousands of years on the West.
Right.
In fact, there's a very good chance that there are civilizations in Africa that date back as far as China. So why do you suppose we haven't found them? Ask yourself, if Africans really were the first people, I'm not saying they are, but let's pretend for a moment, why do we have no evidence of their civilization?
Was that a rhetorical question, or?
It might as well be, because the only answer is there was nothing interesting to find. The first civilization of, remark in terms of advancement was Egypt. Egypt
Right.
and Nubians and maybe a few others, but nothing to the scale of China. Nothing close.
I'm not sure how we arrived from a black girl being incredibly stupid and racist at the same time.
Well, let me paint you the picture. There's a reason why Africa, the continent of Africa did not see the major explosion that Asia did. And yes, that reason is culture. But to an extent, even if we ruled out culture for a moment, geography alone makes it pretty much impossible. To give you an idea, Thomas Sowell points out that while Africa is not very large, I think it's like 1/20th of the world's population. I could be horribly off. They have 1/3 of the spoken languages in one continent. 1/3 of the spoken languages.
Right.
For such, we have problems when people don't speak English at the checkout. How do you suppose relations are between those ethnic groups?
Right. Well, I was actually thinking that perhaps the reason why you see problems is because Africa is naturally such a resource-rich country, continent, that there's no real need to innovate. Like, you can just sustain yourself, depending on what area of Africa you're in, just indefinitely. Whereas in North America, for example, we can't survive if we just try to sustain ourselves. Like, you have to prepare for the winter. You have to, have some sort of preparation to protect you from the elements. You have to do all these things, or else you will die. It's the same thing in much of, well, it was the same thing in much of Europe. There's much hardship. You have to, do certain things to protect yourself. You have like, once you move to this sort of agrarian culture, there are things that there's things that become mandatory. Whereas in Africa, depending on where you are, you can just sustain yourself by doing the exact same thing day in and day out for years and years and years. There's nothing to push you to innovate. There's no, like, you don't get punished for not innovating. Let's put it that way. And that is why white people are superior.
Oh, actually, it's funny because that conclusion is very similar to one that P.J. O'Rourke came to when he went to Russia.
Really?
Their land was so rich that you could, boil stones and turn it into soup, or boil the soil and turn it into.
It was, oh great, now I'm getting network difficulties. We may have to cut, just stop for today. Looks like Josh is not available, but I am. By the way, one of the things that we've always talked about is the fact that hardship always breeds intelligence, and hardship always breeds creativity. Because when you're in a hard state and your current technique for survival does not work, you must come up with something new. And that forces people to be smart. It forces people to adapt. It forces people to change. In an environment where such thing is not necessary, you don't have change. I mean, theoretically, Africa, if they had had creative, hard-working people, Africa would have been the most technologically advanced country in the world, or continent in the world, by simple fact of the sheer availability of resources. By sheer availability of resources, they could have outpaced every other country in the world. The same is largely true for sections of India, sections of China, but especially Africa and even sections of Russia. But because their reaction to the availability of resources was not inspiration and creativity, was related to just continue with what they were doing, they were completely they were eclipsed by people who had moved to much harsher climates and had been forced to adapt, and who then proceeded not only to adapt to their climate, but then to their certain area, but then to overcome. All right, so this is going to be it for right now. I'm going to go follow up with my co-host who dropped off the face of the earth, and we will see you later on.